Hello everyone. In this segment, we are going to talk about three schema architecture of database. So one of the goal of database management system is that database management system supports of multiple user view. All right. So to support the multiple user view, the database management system has a architecture known as tree schema architecture. So in this tree schema architecture, the goal of this architecture is that the database management system separates the user application from the physical database. All right, and the main purpose of this architecture is that it provides the program data independence. So it's not actually explicitly used in commercial database product, but this architecture is very useful to explaining the database system organization. So the database schema, they are actually defines the database schema has been defined, can be defined in three levels. So the first level is internal schema, which defines the database schema in internal level. And in this level, the database schema is being described at the physical storage structure and access path. So this internal schema uses a physical data model and describes the complete detail of data storage and access path for the database. How the data will be stored, what type of indexing we are going to use. All right. So when there is a request for a data, how one data will be fetched from the secondary storage to the memory. So another model is known as schema is known as conceptual schema. So as we know that the conceptual model of database schema give us the database model at very high level user perspective model. So the conceptual schema also it's a database description at the conceptual level, and that describe the data structure and constraints for the whole database for a community of a user. All right, it uses an implementation it uses a implementation data model. The external schema, actually the external schema includes a number of external schema or very different type of user view. All right, so each external schema describes the part of database that a particular user group is interested to see. Okay, for different type of user, all right, for different type of user there are schema for known as external schema. So usually uses the same data model as the conceptual schema, but the description is different for different user. So the tree schema architecture looks like this. At the very external level we have external view, and these external level schema are actually designed for different type of user. So end user, we can have different type of user, and different user has different view for the database. All right, so as we know that the database system is going to support multiple user view for the database, so that's why at the external level we have the database description at different for different user. All right, for different user we have a database description or database schema at external level. Then at the very lower level we have the internal schema. The internal schema actually describes the database description at the very physical level. All right, how the data will be stored at the physical level, and the whole access path means indexing and everything that will be stored at the internal schema. All right, so in between them we have the conceptual level schema. This conceptual schema describes the structure of the database for the whole community of the user. All right, so the conceptual schema has all the description of entities data type relationship, user operation, and constraints. Usually, the representational data model is used to describe the conceptual schema at the conceptual level. The implementation conceptual schema is often based on actually conceptual schema design in a very high level data model. So the conceptual schema resides in between the external view and the internal schema. So these are actually the database schema at different level. The tree schema architecture is actually a very convenient tool by which we can actually visualize the schema levels in visualize the schema in different levels. All right. So the thing is that these tree schema, they are only the description of the data. All right. The real stored data will be only exist only in the physical level. All other levels, the in external and conceptual, these are only give us a overview or a description of the data and different abstraction level. The tree schema architecture, they are actually used to further explain the concept of the data independence. So so we have two type of data independence known as logical data independence and physical data independence. So we need to do the mapping among the schema levels, uh, which will transform request and data. So the user and program that refer to the external schema, all right, and they are going to be mapped by DBMS to the internal schema for execution. The data extracted from the internal DBMS level will be reformatted to match the user's external view. The logical data independence means that we have to have the capacity to change the conceptual schema without having to change the external schema and their associated application program. The physical data independence says that the capacity to change the internal schema without having to change the conceptual schema. For example, when we have internal schema, it may have to changed when there are certain file structure or reorganized or new indexes are created to improve the database performance. When a schema at a lower level is changed, only the mapping between the schema and the higher level schema need to change in a database that fully supports the data independence. The high level schema themselves, they will be unchanged. So the application program need to be changed since they refer to the external schema.